now I return to one of the first topics I made a video about, as inspired by Robert Harris, if anyone remembers him, the turn from Houston onto Elm Street. And here we have the Towner film, which I stole from the Sixth Floor Museum, a video of theirs. If they sue me, they will win because I have no money, not because I'm wrong. But anyway, let's not get off topic. There's something to notice here during the turn onto Elm Street. There's a cut in the film. And I've got it going in slow motion here, so you don't miss anything. Now here, JFK is looking to his right, and he raises his hand to wave, and then this is the last frame before the cut. And when it picks up again, JFK he still had his hand up, but he was getting up as if he had ducked during the cut. And I'll run that again with a bit of a shorter stop so that you can appreciate where this cut is in the film. Okay, so there's a cut in the Towner film. This is not a sophisticated edit, just a simple cut. Vicki Adams, one of my favorite witnesses because she notices things and she's very reliable. In February, she told the FBI that when the president got in front of us, I heard someone call him and he turned. Now, I don't think she's interpreting it exactly correctly. Oh, she was in the building, by the way, on the third floor looking out the window. But she noticed that something happened. She noticed that the president moved. And I think that what she noticed was the president ducking and getting up again. So if JFK ducked, the implication is that somebody threw something at him. And here, right before the duck, we can see that there's a man dressed in white who looks like he's about to throw a pitch down the home plate. He's got his right arm up. He's angled, like you might see a baseball pitcher, as if he's throwing something. He's in the process of throwing something. And throwing man can also be seen in the Bell film here. You can see that he's going through the motions as if he is throwing something as the president comes by. There's no cut here in the Bell film, but you can't see the president well enough to see him ducking in there, so perhaps there was no need to cut the Bell film. And if we look at the Elsie Dorman film, which is hard to do because it's very wacky, I won't get into why, but there are 3 frames which show something happening about the time of the throw. And here, starting in frame 363, everything looks cool, everything is normal. But then in frame 364, something occurs. You have at the top of the screen there, you've got something that's shaped kind of like a hockey stick. Even looks like it's got a little puck on the end. It only appears in 1 frame, but I don't think that's a film anomaly. I think what we have is an object moving across the frame during one exposure of the film. And what we're seeing here is a motion trail, I call it. I don't know if there is a technical name for it. But because this object was moving quickly, it covered that much space in the time that the frame was exposed. And you can see it gets darker towards the right. That's because it's slowing down, and it looks like it even bounced off the sidewalk a little before this frame ends. And then between frames, it bounced away, and you don't see it in frame 265. So my explanation for this is that the throwing man threw this object, I'll call it a ball, well, I don't know what it was. Probably his intent was not to hit the president. I think it probably bounced off the rear part of the car over the trunk, and then it hit another car following in the motorcade, and that's why we see it bouncing onto the sidewalk here in the Dorman film. So, if the throw was an intentional miss, and if Vicki Adams heard somebody call out to the president, then maybe the intent of this was simply to get JFK to turn, to face the direction of where the persons are who are accosting him, so that they can take a picture of him. And if we look at the Bell film, we can see that indeed there is a man standing with throwing man who is poised to take a photograph. These are two consecutive frames from the Bell film here, with some enlargements above. And that tall man in the back, in the frame on the left, is looking down at his camera. And in the frame on the right, he's got the camera up in front of his face. You can tell because he has a flash unit on the camera. I don't know why you probably wouldn't use a flash in a situation like this. Though if it's a strong enough flash and you've got the thing timed right, it might help to illuminate the president's face because the sun is kind of on the other side of him. But whatever the point, that can be nothing else. This can be nothing other than a camera. So we've got throwing man, apparently somebody calling out to the president, somebody throwing something at the president, and somebody with the throwing man taking a photograph of the president as he turns to look. So I think the point here of this throwing incident was to get the president to turn for a photograph. But some people will object to this interpretation. They will say, "Oh, no, it cannot be. There's a police officer right there." Yes, there is a police officer right there. I think it's probably Welcome Eugene Barnett. That would be his name. Though I'm not sure that's who this one is, but there definitely is a police officer standing right in front of throwing man as throwing man throws something at the president. That's true.
I think it's fair to ask, where was George? Where was George? Where was George? Where? Where was? We all know the answer.
Yes, we do, Ted. We do know. He was in Dealey Plaza. Though, ostensibly, that's not what Ted was talking about. And I think Ted perhaps didn't know what the hell he was talking about. I think somebody wrote that line for him. But there, that's my conclusion. I think that's George Bush standing on Houston Street. It's his airline, at least. And I think it's the person himself. And this would explain why the police officer ain't doing nothing about this throw. Because the police officer is there for the important people standing beside him, or behind him, one of whom is George Herbert Walker Bush. And he's the guy who took the picture when JFK turned to look. And I think a strong case can be made for George Bush being present at the assassination. But that's not the topic of this video. Now bear with me as we take a side trip to the men who killed Kennedy, the guilty men.
I remember well the night before the assassination. I worked with a man called Jewel Pfeiffer, black man, which was Virginia Murchison's chauffeur. He got a call from her stepson, John, at the big house. They were having a big party for a very special guest that was coming from Washington to go to the party by the name of Bulldog, which I found out later was J. Edgar Hoover. And he said he was very excited about doing this, going on this trip out to the airport to take this special guest to a very special party, big party. And I asked him when he came back if he got a good tip, and he said no, and he was very, very upset. He had to go back that night to take J. Edgar Hoover to the airport to go back to Washington. And he still didn't get a tip.
Now, Mae Newman here is talking about the Madeline Brown party. I'm not going to get into that. To me, the important part of what she says is this.
I worked with a man called Jewel Pfeiffer, black man, which was Virginia Murchison's chauffeur.
The Murchison chauffeur, and the Murchisons are big, rich. They're big, rich oil people in Texas. They're still big, rich people in Texas. But the chauffeur, at least the one, according to Mae Newman, who was driving J. Edgar Hoover around, was a black man. And this thrower in Dealey Plaza wears a white suit, and he's a black man. So the black man with a white suit in Dallas in 1963 very well could be a chauffeur, and he's standing with police protection with George Herbert Walker Bush, according to me. And the other guy standing there with Bush is a big man, a wide man, who looks very consistent with images we have of Clint Murchison. Now, the official story says that Clint Murchison Sr. Had had a stroke and wasn't in any condition to be standing on Houston Street. At least that's what I saw. I'm not sure I believe that. But Clint Sr. had sons, and one of whom was a large man like himself. Now, I realize this does not prove that the throwing man is Jules Pfeiffer, the Clint Murchison chauffeur. And I keep saying Murchison differently because on the TV they always say Murchison, but Mae Newman, who should know, said Murchison. I think it's Jules Pfeiffer, the throwing man, and that he's there, the Murchison chauffeur, and that he's there with Bush because he is a trusted person who was sent to get J. Edgar Hoover, and no doubt he would be trustworthy enough to be hanging out with George Bush. At that time, anyway, Bush hadn't even been CIA director or president, so he's not even a Hoover at that time. Well, I guess that'll take care of it for Throwing Man. Hopefully I won't have to make this video yet again. I think this is my third try. But, yeah, I think it's Jewel Pfeiffer, the Murchison chauffeur, or maybe the Murchison chauffeur. And I have no more to say.